to an extreme are doing, and I think that we need to have some guidelines, some restrictions, so that we are watching out for the effects or the potential detriments to people that have health issues or emotional or mental health issues, which flicker or different things like that could bring into case. We need to address those in some way. I want to be able to speak intelligently about them too, and not have it be so emotional. And that's my encouragement to all of us here, that we just, that, you know, you got to take emotions out of it at some point and keep being neighborly. So I'm going to continue to be informed and to speak and to listen. And just so that, you know, I'm certainly pro wind generators. And I will eventually sign a lease. I have not done so yet, and I'm probably not going to until we get to a certain point, because I don't want to be, I want to be in a position where somebody's not forcing me to speak. I want to speak because I have the freedom to speak, and not because I've signed a lease or not signed a lease. So thank you.
Can I ask one more question before you? There's a couple of people from the wind companies are here. Is it safe to assume that you would appreciate and enjoy the equal treatment that you will receive by us having rules and regulations in place, so all of your developers have to follow the same guidelines?
I think that having rules, and I'm Doug Goodring with Excellently, I think having rules in place are reasonable. We have proposed limits in Riga and Palmar that we think are reasonable and balance the rights of neighbors versus the rights of landowners to utilize their land, and that's a 1,300 20-foot setback houses, the 45 dBA sound limit. So that allows people to have rules to go ahead and develop a project and balance the various interests. But I don't know exactly what you're asking me.
Well,
because
I guess my question is, you do not have fear of us putting regulations and rules in.
I don't have it. Rules are fine. Okay. But there are many people that are involved in this debate that are advocating for rules which essentially prohibit wind development.
Because I see it, the rules are for everyone. They're to protect you as developers, to protect the citizens, they're to protect our future generations. With or
without rules in Ogden, we're going to design to those limits. If there was no rules, we would still design to those same limits, which are more conservative than in many jurisdictions in Michigan and Ohio and Indiana, more conservative than limits that are in other places where wind development is happening. However, rules that prohibit the development of wind power, which is what many in this room are advocating for and on the committee, they're not helpful because they don't allow the project to move forward.
But I think the key, you had the key phrase when you said your company would like to follow certain guidelines, but there are more companies involved here than just yours. And that's where we need to focus, is to make sure everyone is treated fairly and equal.
And I think our competitors, at least, in Dewey, has advocated for limits similar to what we've advocated for.
Okay, that was it.
I got one more back here. Go ahead.
I just have a question for the other one. Has the state of Michigan proposed any sort of rules or setback regulations?
The state of Michigan has proposed setbacks and rules which are less conservative than what we've advocated for. So our limits we're advocating for would protect residents significantly more than what the state recommendations do.
Yeah, James McLennan, Blizzard Advance. Has the board had meetings similar to those that the Civil Committee has had, where you've gotten together and compiled research? And how much research are you doing as a board, independent of the committee?
We don't have open meetings, like our regular meetings and just like all the special meetings. Okay. We don't have, if you think we're having
We
sessions.
haven't had any information to really analyze.
So, I mean, as individual board members, I mean, I guess how much personal research have you put in the issue? Have you spoken with experts on the issue?
Yeah, I think we've,
Yes.
most or all of us have attended all the,
I've actually visited 3 wind farms, talked to residents in the area.
Okay. So I guess the question is, I mean, do you really rely on the, I mean, how much do you rely on
Well,
the committee as opposed to?
Well, I guess my advice, and I was at their meeting, was for them to actually go on site and visit one of those wind farms. And I think there was only one member on the 5-man board that had actually done that. So, I mean, I encouraged them to do that.
Follow up on that comment, in order to coordinate the schedules of 5 otherwise busy professionals to go to various wind farms, I think time is needed to do that and to report back on those issues. And to address Mr. Dumering's comment, yes, Great Lakes Wind and Exelon have proposed a 1,320-foot setback and 45 decibel sound limit. However, their competitors have proposed only a 1,000-foot setback and a 50 decibel sound limit. Those are vastly different, and they highlight the need for appropriate and reasonable regulation by the citizens of Ogden and other surrounding townships. And I'd also like to bring up the issue of the Citizens Action Committee. Not only were they charged with identifying issues, but they were charged with providing recommendations to the township board as to how to address those issues. And without appropriate time to study the issues in full, it makes it very difficult for them to provide appropriate recommendations for the township board to act upon.
I want to just address just one point. I don't want to just turn into a debate, but I don't believe our competitors that advocated for 50 at anything at participants only. At non-participants, you has advocated for 45 in their submissions to Ragland.
Lynette Van Camp, Ogden Township resident. My question is in regards to this meeting. Can you answer why it was put at 5 o'clock instead of 7?
Because the Citizens Committee is meeting here at 7.
And then my other question is I kind of have a problem with, Jim knew about changing the number of people on the panel, and Phyllis knew, because she announced it, but that it appears that Mark didn't know and Richard didn't know. So was this something you discussed?
No,
I didn't announce
she
it.
didn't announce it.
I thought you were the first one to say that we were gonna,
Jim announced this.
I announced
oh,
it.
you announced
I
it,
announced
okay.
Because of the complaints that I had and about the fairness part of it, and the letter I received, and that's why I brought that up.
Okay. And then I just want to acknowledge, I appreciate that Kevin does acknowledge that he has been on and read blogs that people do have health issues with these, so I
I
just
just
want
have
to.
a quick question for Russ. Russ, I haven't been to your citizens group meeting. You have one at 7 o'clock tonight. You've had others. Is there a chance for, anybody can attend, these are posted meetings, and is there a chance for people to speak or address your citizens committee? I just wanted to let everybody know that they are meeting, for instance, at 7 o'clock tonight, and if there's people that would like to attend, I'm sure you'd be welcome,
We always allow for public comments.
Okay. And have there been people that have attended?
Yes.
Okay.
My question is actually for Mr. Dumering. I would like him to share with the crowd the nighttime noise limits in your own home province of Ontario and the setbacks there.
I'm not sure what they are.
Won't have this, please. Question is asked. If you want to respond, you can, but I don't want to get into a dispute.
I'm not an advocate for the province of Ontario, right? I'm advocating for what I think is reasonable and what we do.
What you're getting paid for.
All right.
Larry Clark, resident of Ogden Township. I just want to make a brief comment. You know, we're sitting here and we're trying to decide whether we want to have these or whether we don't. And, you know, the committee's going to have the input on it. You people as a board are going to make that decision. But I want to touch one base about this. Like Mark said, once you have this in, it's permanent. It's not going to go away. And we need to evaluate every aspect of what the impacts are before we either approve or disapprove them. So don't be snappy to rush to judgment and say, yeah, we're for it or we're against it. You know, you've got to look at the whole aspect of it. And once you get that in the ground, maybe Mr. Demery can answer that question. How long do they stay? What's the life expectancy? I mean, 20 years is what?
We have a 20-year contract with Consumers Facility. We expect them to last longer than that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not something that's gonna just be here today and gone tomorrow. It's gonna be here for a long time, and the effects of it are gonna be with you as long as, you know, you've lived in this township.
you made one comment. I want to make sure this is understood. We cannot stop this project. This project will be coming into the township. Well, all we can do is regulate.
Right.
That is the extent of our power.
Right. And that's important to regulate it so that it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yes, but don't be misled that we can or will or want to stop it. That is not the case.
There's been some other people that make that comment that are pro-wind, that, you know, there are people here that are against it. Yes, there are, just as there are people that are for it. But the main thing here is not to rush, to come to a conclusion on how we're going to handle the situation. And everyone needs to take that into very serious consideration when you decide to do what you want to do with it.
Stutzman, Ogden Township resident. Just to comment though about the, what the board would enact is to regulate. There is regulation, and then there's also prohibitive regulation. If you're going way farther than what the standards, industry type of standards would be of other localities where they are putting in a wind project, that they have set their ordinances. If the standard or the restrictions that we are placing here in Ogden are more restrictive than any place else, then to me that is putting in restrictions to the point that no project can be done. So then in essence you are zoning or prohibiting the project to happen if they're beyond what normal standards would be.
Point taken.
Go ahead. Tony Pay from Blissfield. There was a comment made at the RIGA meeting the other night, and it was in regards to, it was by a windmill personnel, and he stated that the ordinance that they were drafting and recommending makes it somewhat prohibitive, at least if not eliminating completely the project through that area, it was reducing it significantly. Now, if it was 2,400 feet or 2,700 feet from a non-participant or something like that, but if that is prohibitive for the project that they want, but it does provide safety and sanctity and tranquility to the people in the community, then so be it. You can only fit 10 instead of the 35 you want. Because if you truly had the method that the wind farms wanted, they would run a string of them one after another, as tight as they possibly could to generate power and not interfere with each other, disregard completely about us. Because we're a small postage stamp on the face of this country. It doesn't really matter. They don't have our best interest in mind. I would like to know the answer. What is the ordinance in this gentleman's hometown?
40 decibel sound limit at night.
And distance?
I don't know if I think they're moving to, is it 2 kilometer?
I think he knows, but he's just not telling you.
I know it's.
But my point is, the windmill companies do not have our best interests at heart in this community, in this township, and other townships.
No, they don't.
They really don't. They have business, money, that's what they have at heart, and trying not to upset too many people in the process. So they offer a little bit. 1,000 was the initial that I heard, then it got bumped up to 1,300. Well, 2,400, 2,700 is just way too much for them. The only reason is it reduces the quantity and it reduces the lines of them that they could actually run in this county. They would have to polka dot this county, running a lot more power lines and a lot more infrastructure on their part. And if this particular region of this state or region of the country warrants that, so be it. Out in Iowa, they can run strings one after another. Houses are spread out so far, it really doesn't matter.
They're a different community. They're shorter windmills. We have much larger windmills than many of the other projects throughout the country. So don't be afraid of we're being prohibitive, and don't say that you can't stop this project. And by the way, I am not against green energy, but I am against people that are receiving cash voting on it, and I am against disrupting our peace and tranquility in this area.